Joe Pisapia is with us from Fantasy Sports Today and Fantasy Pros. Of course, his Fantasy Black Book for baseball is already out. No, I'm just kidding. Probably out in a few weeks, but it'll be out soon enough. And this is my worst season ever in fantasy football, culminated with last night being up big, thinking I got to win. And it's just not been my year to go up against Bijan Robinson on Monday Night Football. It's just sometimes, Joe, it's just what happens. And I'm not quitting, I'm dead. I'm done. In one league, one I still have a chance, but it's just been one of those unfortunate things. And I looked at the numbers too, how many points I have versus points given up. I'm not making any excuses. My team's just not that good, but I'm doing fine in points, and I'm doing horrendous in points given up. But that's what the luck is of fantasy sometimes, I think.
Yeah, a bit of it. Look, it's been a tough year for injuries. There's been a lot of weird and a lot of quarterback injuries, too, that have affected a lot of offenses. Look at the Ravens players, right? We've gone through with them, with Derrick Henry. And I think overall, a lot of emerging of some things people didn't see coming necessarily. The Daniel Jones emergence, the quick emergence of Drake May, who I know we're going to talk about as well. But it has been a tough year for fantasy. But here's my question, Craig. Maybe it's time to start preparing more than a day before the draft. Maybe you go out and get that black book that comes out in June. I'm just saying.
No offense to the black book. But no, it'll never happen.
All right.
Maybe I lost Joe Burrow in week 1, and that affected Chase. I drafted Egbuka. That was great for a long time. I was ahead. I was ahead of it with Benson. That was really good too. It's just things happen. I don't complain about this stuff anymore. What happens is when I get this far into the season, I just make sure that I paid already because I do not want to pay at the end of the season after I'm horrendous. So that's usually my deal. All right, let's get to the winners in fantasy football. Baker Mayfield's been an MVP candidate. I think this is a huge topic of discussion, by the way, coming up Monday night with all those guys being out. It feels like the Tampa Bay commodities at wide receiver have to be discussed. We'll get to that. Baker's a big winner. You mentioned players that are surprises. Rico Dowdle has got to be number one after the last 2 weeks. He had 183 rushing yards on 30 attempts and also receiving touchdown. And then Cam Scatterbo, who I loved in college, but I just didn't think this quickly he would be this much of a factor. 3 touchdowns, 98 yards. Reminds me so much of when Allstott was with Tampa Bay. He's just that good. They don't even have work done with him. He's the main guy right now.
He is. And again, if you read your black book, you would be all in on Scatterbo at the NFL level. Why? Because they told him in high school it wouldn't work. They told him in college it wouldn't work. And then they told him in the pros he wouldn't work. And guess what? All this guy does is find dudes, trucks them, and runs in for scores. This is what he does. And look, he can catch the football too. He's a good athlete, and he brings an energy to the Giants that they have not had in a long time. Look, I'm from the tri-state area. You know what it's like, as Giants fans around here can probably attest to. Even when the Giants were at their peak in the mid to late 80s, early 90s, and then again the Eli Manning era, they were kind of boring. I don't think the Giants are boring right now. I think the Giants are on TV and you go, hey, I kind of want to watch Jackson Dart. I want to watch Cam Scatterbo. This is entertaining, and it's infectious, and it's creating actually a bit of a home field advantage for them, which is also something that I don't know if they've really had that much of in this stadium. So I think this is really an interesting turn here. Cam Scatterbo with a 30 point night, 3 touchdowns, huge day for them. But the lead here is Baker Mayfield. On Sunday morning on FST, I spoke at length about betting Baker Mayfield for MVP at plus 950. Why? Because the only thing really standing in his way is Josh Allen, who really is kind of in a tough spot, who doesn't have a lot of help. And of course, what happened? Baker Mayfield had an incredible game. One play in particular that really just is lighting up all the highlight reels. He gets that big first down, gets out of a sack, and kind of keeps willing this team to win. And it is a good team. They've had a lot of continuity. They did a really good job here with the front office of keeping these guys, drafting these guys, re-signing these guys, right? And no matter how many offensive coordinators he has, Baker Mayfield every year continues to get better and better. And I think this narrative has grown. And after this big win against the 49ers, and now you get the Detroit Lions, he is now plus 350 for MVP. That drop was significant. So there's a chance you're already getting offered cash outs for this in some spots. But I do think Tampa is the best team in the NFC, and I'm going to stand on that. You do get Mike Evans back, hopefully this week. That is the hope. No Emeka Egbuka, that hurts, but I don't see why he can't go on the road and get a victory. And then in terms of Rico Dowdle, you mentioned it. He is the RB1 over the last 2 weeks. 2 incredible performances, 200 yards in that first week that he had, and then last week, the revenge game against the Cowboys. Just incredible. He's averaging 33 points per game in PPR. It's stunning. The question is, when Chuba Hubbard comes back, what's Chuba Hubbard's role? Because if you're watching Rico Dowdle, I don't see how you can take him out of what he's doing right now. He has been electric for this team, and they're winning games right now. And I think that is the most important piece here. So we'll see how it goes. But if you have Chuba Hubbard right now, it's a very dicey investment on your bench.
Yeah, maybe a trade would help Hubbard. We'll see. All right. So in terms of wide receivers, you mentioned Egbuka. Also, Puka Nakua looks like he will miss this week. And so that's where the waiver wire is going to come into play. Got to figure that out if you have either of those guys. Justin Fields, no longer, I mean, startable in any fantasy format, I don't think, after what I saw last week. And then the Dolphins come up short. And I'm going to guess, Joe, in a couple of weeks, their team's going to look a lot different than it looks right now.
Yeah, look, bad news is Puka Nakua is not going to play this week. The good news is it doesn't look like a high ankle sprain, so maybe we're looking at a couple weeks here instead of a month and change, so that is a positive. Justin Fields was just 45 yards passing. Look, I think you crumple this up and you throw it out, and I'll tell you why. Because in Superflex leagues, this is a great time to buy on Justin Fields. It was awful. It was terrible. It's about as bad as it gets. But Justin Fields is still a QB1 in terms of fantasy. Is it going to look pretty in real life all the time? No. But you knew what you were getting into in the first place. And I think there will be panic out there. It was an international game, a game against one of the best, if not the best defense in the league, right, with the Denver Broncos. And it was a tough day at the office for Fields. He comes back this week, and you look at the schedule, it gets much better here going forward for him. So I think he gets the Carolina Panthers and then followed by the Cincinnati Bengals after that. So, like, there's some good matchups here for Justin Fields coming up in the weeks ahead. So to me, he's a buy, but there's no doubt that offense was atrocious. He got sacked 9 times. You just can't have that happen. And now losing Garrett Wilson doesn't help. So I think a lot of people will panic. I would buy him in super flex leagues, though. I'm telling you, I think that rushing equity he brings is still good enough. Now the question is, who's going to step up in the vacancy there of Garrett Wilson? And then in terms of things falling apart, look, we already saw one head coach fired yesterday. Brian Callahan is gone. I do believe that Mike McDaniel will be the next to go. I always thought he would go in week 12, which is when their bye week is, but the wheels are coming off even before that. And it's funny, Craig, because they're kind of competitive in these games. They're scoring points. The defense is dreadful. They have no continuity. They seem to have no game plan. Devon Achane has played really well, but the Tua comments after the game, I know a lot of people have discussed them and said, well, it's a bad look on Tua. But what if Tua is the guy that's already gone to the coaching staff and gone to the front office and say, hey, people aren't doing what they're supposed to do? Who else is he going to appeal to but the media and the fan base and everybody else and saying, hey, I'm running this flag up this poll here and saying things are not good. We need to be better. It's a guy who comes from a Nick Saban culture. I can't think of a more different culture than what he's getting right now in Miami.
Yeah, no, I think that that's fine, Joe. I think the point is that you have open locker room on Wednesday, and I think all of that is appropriate for that. But after a game like that, I just thought it looked stupid on himself to bring it up. Now, after the week is over, and then you open, everyone's there. I don't know. I just too much blame thrown in other directions. He did take accountability, by the way. All right, week 7 waiver wire. Not the biggest of the season, but got to be in the top 2 or 3 just because of the injuries again to Nakua and Egbuka. So I will ask you, I believe this list has 3 or 2 players at least that are gone in most of these leagues. I understand it says 45% for Vidal and Bourne, but after the last 2 weeks, I can't see those guys being available. So what would you do in this spot? Because you have Boutte on New England, maybe Downs availability, but this kid Tez Johnson, he could be great this week. We don't know. Whittington could start alongside Devontae Adams. Sterling Shepard may be a guy in Tampa Bay too. I think you have to get a piece of Tampa Bay Monday.
Yeah, I think that piece for me is Tez Johnson because I like him as a rookie. He's explosive, and you do figure that's going to be a high total game when you're looking at Vegas, so I think you try that one. Shepard, you kind of know what he is. Tez Johnson, I think, is more interesting. Kamani Vidal is, even on Sleeper, more competitive leagues, still just under 50% roster because a lot of people heard Haskins was going to be the lead, and we all just rolled with that, and turns out Vidal is better right now at least, but it is temporary, and I think Vidal's temporary until Hampton comes back. I think all these guys are temporary. I wouldn't overspend on Boutte, on Whittington, on any of these guys. They're a bunch of streamers this week, so bid a couple bucks if you need them because they're waiver wire help. Other than that, I wouldn't overspend on any of them.
Loud and clear, Joe. Thanks. Have a good weekend.